Hello everybody, welcome to Talks with Adri. We already have the first episode about the origin of the universe, the second one about how does it work, and this third one is what is outside. So today we're going to talk about what science says about the life outside of our planet, what does the ancient civilization believe, and how do they contact these beings from the stars, and what are the messages that we have recently received from other beings, from extraterrestrials, basically beings that are not from Mother Earth. All right, so let's start. With this, I want to say that I don't want to persuade you about anything that I'm going to say here. Basically, the idea is that you open your mind and that you analyze different perspectives, and then you will build your own truth, because there is not only one. One thing that science tells us is that the universe is so big, it is so huge. It is 90 billion light years in diameter, what we can see right now. And the farthest that we can see is Andromeda, which is the galaxy that is right next door. We are in the Milky Way. We can call it our neighborhood. And here there are 100 billion galaxies, and each of them with between 100 to 1,000 billion of stars. So there are plenty of suns and a lot of possibility of life to be out there. So let's concentrate basically in the Milky Way, which is where we can see. In the Milky Way, there are 400 billion stars. And if only 0.1% of possibility of having an inhabitable planet out there, we're going to talk about 1 million possibilities. 1 million planets out there have the possibility of having life. So even though science don't recognize that there is life out there, they haven't proved it, what they say is that the probability is very, very high. Also, since the Big Bang happened, until our planet or until the Milky Way was created, many other beings were before. Other planets or the stars. The Milky Way is relatively new or young. It's only 30 billion years. So it could have been life previously that had disappeared already and that we were never aware of. Science is going to say that there is a theory called Fermi paradox, and it is called the theory of the great filters. Why? Because they say that first, the origin of life is very difficult because it depends on the environment, temperature, weather, and the possibility of life itself to be able to evolve and grow and everything. There is one theory that says, okay, we as humans and the environment that you see here, the conditions are only in this planet, and we are unique and we are a very evolved and intelligent species. And that makes us so special because we are the only ones who have been able to evolve and developed a civilization. But because of all these circumstances that are required to have life, there is a great filter, and the other planets have not reached there yet or haven't been able to pass this filter. So this is the first theory. The other theory of the Fermi paradox, the other possibility, is that maybe many develop the civilization or beings that are intelligent and that are looking for energy and all this, but there is a great filter above us and we still have not reached it. And all the civilizations and all the other beings that have reached that have already disappeared. Perhaps that can happen to us if we continue in the same way that we have developed up to now. Because if we understand our human history, it has been more like a conflict and war. And all what we have been done to our environment is taking us to our destruction. So perhaps this had happened to other civilizations before, and that's why we haven't seen the aliens around. Let's see. That so-called intelligence that we think, sometimes being very arrogant, is taking us to our own destruction. Meanwhile, we see the other species here, at least in Mother Earth, that are evolving and creating new life. But let's see. So in conclusion, for the science, we can say that there is not life that we have already discovered yet, but the probability for it to exist, it is very, very high. I will say that we are trying to see something, to perceive something with our senses. What the NASA is trying to do is reach radio frequencies to listen to extraterrestrials, or they want to land on Mars and see another being and maybe being able to communicate with them. But what I believe is that there is another way, another possibility to communicate with them, as did our ancestors in ancient civilizations. And it is not through going there necessarily. It is tapping into our heart and embracing our frequency. Our body is the machine that we need. We don't need to go into spacecrafts and all that. Maybe going within ourselves is the way that we can tap into different dimensions, into higher realities. What I'm going to explain here, it is not based on science or facts, but there are many written books of people that have channeled, and like Edgar Cayce, like Diana Cooper, like many other beings that are talking right now, because the more that humanity raises the frequency, more people are able to be tapping into this knowledge or into these things that are in a way similar of how the ancient civilizations did. And we have plenty of information of how the beings outside our universe work. And that is what I'm going to explain right now. Okay, in order to start, I will need that you remember that from the previous episode, when we explained how the universe works, we went into this graphic that we have here, and it is that our sun moves around the Pleiades. Why this is important? Because we really depend on our solar system. For us, the biggest star and the one that gives us life is the sun. So we are definitely aligned with the sun in order to live. It's what gives us life. And the sun takes a 26,000 year cycle going around the Pleiades. So the sun depends on this 7-star cluster for his own life. He is dependent on that. So the influence of the Pleiades on the sun is very big. Is the magnetism, is his own center, in the same way that for us our center is the sun. At the same time, the Pleiades had another center. This center is called the Great Central Sun. And this Great Central Sun, apparently, it's a belt made of photons, and they also rotate around it. All these Pleiades, all these 7 stars. So these beings are going to influence our reality and our creation. The Great Central Sun is something that it is far away from our understanding, something that we are not going to be able to consider. It doesn't fit in our minds, but it is a being, a consciousness, that it is from the 9th, that goes from the 9th dimension to the 12th dimension. So it is not possible to see it or to perceive it in the 3rd dimension that we live. And it is a very intelligent, evolved consciousness, and from it emanates everything that you see in the known and in the unknown universe for us. So out of him, out of this central sun, beings or forces came out. The hierarchy of the stars is very complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify it, even though I don't have its whole understanding, but according to different books and to different people that have channeled, this is what I understood. So we have, for example, the seraphims, the Elohims, the Archangels, and the Angels. So these are the beings of light. And additionally to these beings of light that are not matter, let's say that there are forces of their energy, there are others that are more similar to us, that are our brothers, that also come out from these beings. So from the central sun came out the seraphim, which are the 12th dimension beings. In the Bible, it's written, or they are depicted, for example, in the Renaissance, with 3 wings and covering their eyes with the wings because they couldn't stand the reflection or the radiance of God, of the unity. Just to give you an example. And they move There are consciousness that move slowly because they give, with their singing, with their sound, they give like the order or the movement to all the other forces. Here we still don't have planets or stars because they are just etheric in a very, very, very high frequency. For example, Seraphina, according to Diana Cooper, there are 144 seraphim, and one, it is for Mother Earth, that is called Seraphina, and she's working hard, raising the consciousness, because the seraphim are in charge of giving us faith and love, especially faith on reaching back to the unity. But as they are so high in frequency, for us it's very difficult to tap with their energy. Unless we ask it, because we have always a free will, and if we ask for it, we are going to be able to sense it. The other beings are the Elohims. The Elohims are in the 6th dimension. We can call them the architects of the universe. What they do, they are like spheres. They are the spheres that are built with this seed of life. Remember the 6 circles that we explained in the first episode? Well, those are the seraphims, and out of them come all the geometrical forces, all the light, all the sound, all the vibration, all the magnetism that it is required in order to produce planets and things. But basically they are still in the etheric world. They don't bring up matter, but they made all the design. We can say it like that. They made all the design, like the architects. And then the archangels could be the engineerings, the ones that are really going to bring up into matter all what the Elohims created or designed. Later, the archangels have greater, very big tasks. So they use the sacred geometry with spirals, throwing, moving around. They are present everywhere, omnipresent. They have big tasks, and especially for humanity, we know the archangels, they are divided according to the race. So we have 7 days a week, we have 7 archangels. There are many archangels, but at least 7 important archangels that works with the centers of our chakras in each of the frequencies, trying to raise up the frequency in order for us to grow up in consciousness. The archangels are greater comforters for humans. They are not only our friends, but we can feel it, they are even closer. And they have important tasks for humanity, and they are going to be, they can use our nature, they can use the elements in order to help us in this global raising consciousness. We can say that they work in different dimensions, because they work in our 3rd dimension, they work in the 2nd dimension, they are going to be working in different dimensions, but in order to communicate with them, we have to raise ourselves in the frequency of the 5th dimension, from the heart. How does the frequencies work? This is important in order to understand how to communicate with angels and with spiritual guides. Most of humans vibrate in the lower frequency chakras. The root chakra starts in 369 hertz. So that is a lower vibration, very terrestrial or very attached to the 3rd dimension. And the more that you grow spiritually, the more that if you are a good person, if you have an open heart, your frequency is going to raise up. The more compassionate that you are, then you're going to start raising your vibration to the 5th dimension, which is 528 hertz. From this dimension, our intuition develops a lot, and we are able to maybe listen or feel or see our spiritual guides. Many people have said, I've just heard a voice, or I had a dream and I saw this and that, or my intuition says, because I just have the feeling of. So this is exactly what our archangels and angels do with us. They communicate with us through thoughts, through dreams, maybe through signs, maybe through another person that comes and tells us a message. But they can only interfere or talk to us if we have asked them for, because there is the free will. So it's only if you want their help. If you haven't requested, it is very difficult. Or in the cases that you are in high risk of losing your life, like in very important things, when you are completely moving out of your purpose, of your path, they are going to intervene. For example, if somebody is going to die and it's not its moment, okay, maybe they are going to do something. The angels are the most closer beings, the one that we more know, and that's why there is more literature about them, because most of the people have felt their presence next to them. They are also great comforters. They are beings of extreme love, of unconditional love, that they decided to be with us, and not only in this reincarnation, but in all the reincarnations. It is a company of your soul, a being that knows you better than anybody else, and it's always with you. So they are extraterrestrials because they don't have a body. An angel doesn't have like eyes or mouth or hands or something like us, because they are not matter. They are energy. They exist in a parallel reality with us at the same time. And they communicate with us through thoughts, through feelings. They also have vibrations in these realms. So the higher your vibration, the higher the vibration is going to be of your spiritual guide, of your guardian angel. Because they feed themselves with love, with peace, and the opposite. If you start feeding yourself with negative emotions, then you're going to attract entities, which are not angels, but low vibrational beings that are also going to be fed by your lies or your depression or many other things. And the more that you feel in this way, the more powerful they become. But they don't want to kill you, because if you're done, then they also can't continue feeding themselves. So they need you in a bad state, but alive. Here in this world of duality, we see them like good and bad, right? Like the good ones and the evil ones. But outside in the space, or like in other dimensions, there is not the duality. Actually, they cooperate. Sometimes with when our guardian angel just whisper into our ears, maybe this is not the correct path, go back to your purpose. And maybe they also touch us, and maybe they just talk to a friend, the friend come to us and tell us the message, and we continue not listening. It is very possible that they go to the opposite forces, and they are going to be happy to help, pushing us in a more strict way to come back to our path. For example, with an illness or with an accident or somebody that is really shocking, because at the end we need to evolve. If there is no change, there is no evolution. So that is how the spiritual world works. Every time that we go opposed to our center, to our unity, we need to go back. So there is going to be one force that gets closer, the other force that gets closer, in order to go back. And that is basically what our spiritual guides do. The hierarchy is much more complicated than I'm explaining here, but I try just to simplify it. Actually, I don't have the whole understanding of it, but for you to have a picture of other things, beings of light that are out there. For example, in the Bible, in Colossians 1:16, it says, "For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions," other beings, celestial beings that I'm not touching here, but are like in the hierarchy of the angels, "or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him." So here we see that even the Bible mentions that there are a lot of other beings that are out there that are beyond our forces of our power, and that contribute with our creation, with our reality. So that's why I put here the central sun, because out of him all the things known and unknown in the universe comes from him. And all this is in the etherical plane, not still in the material plane. Okay, so now focus into our earth, into the human reality. We have here the great central sun that produced the seraphims, the Elohims, and the archangels. One of the archangels is Archangel Metatron. Archangel Metatron, with his opposite divine force, which is Shekinah, the female force from Orion's constellation, because it's where the place, but remember that there is no places because there is no space, but let's say it's like the etherical realm of Archangel Metatron, Orion constellation. He's going to send the rays, the spirals, all the sacred geometry in order to create. And from here, with also using the force of the elements, being the elements also beings, he's going to create the stars, the planets, and this is what we call the creating forces. This is according to Diana Cooper, which is similar to all the ancient civilizations that we explained in the previous class, in the origin of the universe. So we have one unity with opposite forces that give birth to two opposite forces, and out of this duality comes all the universe. So after the solar system was created, thanks to Metatron and the sacred geometry, it was needed to have some administrative councils. And then we're going to have the Galactic Council of 12. This is for humanity, for our planet, for the planet Earth. In this Galactic Council, we're going to have the following members: Master Marco, Commander Ashtar, Lord Hilarion, Saint Germain, Jesus, or now called Lord Sananda, Kuan Yin, Lord Kutumi, El Moria, Serapias Bey, Paul the Venetian, Mary Magdalene, and Lord Maitreya. So if you see, maybe you have heard any of these beings, ascended masters. The ascended masters had reincarnated on Earth many times with different civilizations. For example, just Saint Germain, he was Saint Germain in France, but he was also Paul, one of Jesus' apostles. So we're going to see that many of them come to help humanity to raise their consciousness. We have 7 that we know, because each of them are working with the archangels and with the angels in the 7 rays of our chakras. But there are 12. When we are able to pass to the 5th dimension, and when we're able to raise our vibration, we're going to activate 12 chakras. We're not going to stay in 7 chakras. So we're going to be able to download different energies that raise up our conscious, that help us with the evolution. So this I'm going to explain through all these episodes, but just to give you a brief of how to communicate with the council. These are ethereal beings, but as we know, the ascended masters have come down to earth to help us. And we also have other beings that we can call our brothers. Brothers, because they are also in different planets or stars, for example, such as the Pleiades, such as the galaxy of Andromeda, such as the Arcturians, and such as the beings from Sirius. These beings and many others had helped to build our human footprint. They have contributed genetically. They have put their DNA. So let's say that in our blood, in our biological system, we have the information and the evolution of these beings as well. These we're going to explain it later in the human experiment, and how in the next episode where we're going to talk about where does the human come from. But let's say that they are our brothers. They are our cosmic brothers as well, because they also come from the energy of the great central sun, and they were also created. Their planets and their stars were also created by the archangels, by the Archangel Metatron in the constellation of Orion, which is one of the most ancient ones in our Milky Way. Just to give you a glance of where they're located, here we have Orion's belt. Here is Canis Minor, and here we have Canis Major, and the nose is Sirius, this other one. Here we also have Orion, and here it's a very important constellation that is Taurus. And Taurus, here we're going to have the Pleiades, okay? The group of these 7 stars that are located at the Taurus constellation. All right, so who are the Pleiadians? The Pleiadians obviously come from these 7 stars, from this cluster of stars. People say that they look like their eyes are blue and they look like a lot of galaxies inside, and the hair is yellow, but more than being blonde, it is more light. It is light that comes out instead of hair. And they are basically our spiritual guides. They are in charge of bringing humanity to a different level of consciousness. They have been in Mother Earth many times. They have been in Atlantis. Right now, they're helping us a lot. They have talked to some governments here in order to exchange technology. They are working with the medicine, with the scientists, helping them to develop the medicine into a more holistic way of seeing the individuals, like multidimensional beings as we are, not only physical. So the Pleiadians are helpers. We can say that they bring heaven to earth. They can work in the ethereal and they can also work with the matter. So we can say that the Pleiades is like our portal, is the portal for the beings to become spiritual or to change the matter to energy. That's why the Pleiades are so important and have been so important for all the previous civilizations. Remember that our sun, the magnetic center of the sun, is the Pleiades. So arrive to Pleiades or understand them. Get in contact with these beings is something very important for humanity or for humans in order for the ascension, for the transformation, for the transmutation, for the evolution. They travel in something that is called the Merkaba. The Merkaba is a light vehicle. Is when you're able to master your own energy to be faster than the speed of light. And they know how to move their energy in spiral, but more than spiral, it's like a toroidal way of moving the energy. And it looks outside like a sphere because our eyes cannot really, and our cameras can't catch something that is faster than light. So it looks like a sphere when they travel and they move. They have been recorded in cameras. They have a very big difference with the humans, and it is that they are not from the 3rd dimension. So they are not going to have organs, reproductive system like we have. They reproduce in different ways. Basically, we can communicate with them through thoughts and through dreams. And we can ask their assistance, for example, that they come with the electric light, that they come out through the electronics, that they come out with the healing equipment, everything that has to do with the medicine, because that is the task that they have. That is the way that they can help humanity to raise our consciousness. Now we're going to have the Arcturians. The Arcturians work together with the Pleiadians. The Arcturians are like you see here. They have like an elongated skull. They have also big eyes, and their eyes are going to also look like galaxies, and their skin is like bluish. They have races. They have black, like in the same, like humans. We have different types of color of the skin, but our blood is always red. In their planet there is no oxygen. Their blood is not red, it's bluish, and that's why they're going to be always depicted like that. They have also come several times to Mother Earth, and they are going to be the scientists. So in a way, like the Pleiadians are like the healers and the spiritual, they're going to be more the scientists going to the biology. They work with the DNA, and they do have reproductive systems. So when they came to Earth, what they did was that they mixed with the existed humans in order to develop this new race or this new species. And in the previous civilizations, they are going to be considered gods, and they were so respected, so wise, that this old way of saying that the royal blood is blue comes from when the Arcturians came here to Earth, because they were so respected. They were kings, they were considered gods. And we're going to see, for example, with Lord Shiva, with Osiris, that had this color in the different deities of different civilizations. And then we're going to have the Reptilians. The Reptilians came to Earth and they helped us to adapt the knowledge of how to take the Kundalini, how to raise up our energy from the lower chakras up through all our spine and then fly. Basically, to also cross that portal of the spirituality. That's why they call it the snake, and the snake passes through all our chakras, reaching out the different consciousness, reaching out different states. The reptilians were pushed away. They basically talked to the priestesses, to the women that were the priestesses at that time. There was a matriarchal society. And they learned all these. But later, when there was this shift and the males took all the domination of the earth, the reptilians were forced to live in the same way that the woman basically became slave of men. The reptilians are also considered gods from many ancient civilizations. We're going to see that they're also called the draconians. For example, in China, one of the gods or the deities, like the animal of the zodiac that includes all the qualities of the other animal, is the dragon. We're also going to see them in Mesoamerica, like with the feather serpent. We're going to see that many ancient cultures, also the Egyptians, worship the snake, or the crocodiles, or the lizards, or the dragons. So the reptilians work basically in all the earth. But when this changed and men took power, they didn't want that this knowledge continue, because it was so powerful and they wanted to dominate, to control. So there is something that is called the reptilian brain that we all have, and it stayed in us. And it is when we just live from our lower centers, from our first three chakras, because we live in survival, we live in fear. And meanwhile, we stay here living with those feelings, we're never going to be able to tap into our heart and then awake the intuition in order to be free. That's the way to control. And this knowledge was kept in secret and was passed from the Mesopotamian civilization through the alchemists, and later in the Greek society, also hidden, and then towards the Illuminati and to the New World Order. And this is a knowledge that is awakening, is now being public. But we need to learn and to be trained how to raise our Kundalini in order to be free. And just leave those states of fear and survival that makes us react. And that is what causes all this domination, all these imbalances, and that doesn't allow us humans to evolve. So in principle, it's not that there are reptilians right now on Earth, but their legacy or their knowledge is used not for good purposes, what we can say. Alright, so these beings exist. Their forces are working right now parallel to where we are. How the ancient civilizations view them, how do they contact them? So I'm going to explain here the Egyptians, the Toltecs, and the Nazca, which were in Peru. It's a pre-Inca society or civilization. Here I am showing the pyramids of Giza. There is this guy called Wayne Herschel. He's British, born in 1959. He's still alive and he's in South Africa. And he is going to take the theories of O. von Speth and Robert Bauval. What they say basically is that the pyramids of Giza mirror the constellation of Orion, the Orion belt, and the X. If you can see here, it is like an X, and this is Orion's belt. Remember, this is the portal with Metatron is the place where we have to look, where our sun is looking, and where we can go if we really want to transcend, to evolve. So, align with the rhythm, basically. Okay, so here we have the pyramids of Giza in the same alignment, and we have here the corners, but there is one missing. There will be one of the points that are missing. And what happened was that in 1820s, there was an exploration in Egypt, and they found out all the foundations of a forgotten pyramid. But when this was set, after this expedition, the ruins were robbed, and basically they disappeared, all the blocks. So when they noticed that they was there and that it completely aligns with this constellation, they just made it disappear. But when Herschel is going to say that not only here, as the previous scientist mentioned, he's going to say that it works for many ancient civilizations buildings that are also aligned with Orion constellation. Also, here we have a papyrus that shows the creation, or when the gods arrived to Earth. So here we have Num, which is the big lady there, which has all the stars, all the planets, all the universe, and she gives birth to everything that is under her, and at the same time she eats it all. Remember that the universe is a great predator. So she's in charge of these cycles of birth and rebirth, and out of her also came the gods. But there is something that is here very interesting. You're going to find here the cluster of the Pleiades, and that is in the constellation of Taurus, and it looks like a bull's leg. So here we have the bull's leg, and that it came out of there, the gods came and they landed in a ship's base or something that was shining on top of the Sphinx. And out of here came, this is Ra, the man that has the bird's head, or the bird that has the man's head in this case, but this is a version of Ra, the god of the sun. And out of him came all the other gods and goddesses. Remember? Okay. So, if this is what the Egyptians told us for their civilization around 13,000 years ago, it means that the Sphinx already existed, and apparently it is older than 26,000. Apparently it is older like 100,000 years ago. This the scientists have not determined yet. But what we can say is that the Sphinx is looking, as you see here, right in front. It's mirroring the Leo constellation. So apparently there was another period of time where the Leo constellation was very important also for the beings on Earth. The thing is that still we don't have information about such ancient information. Another things that are very interesting. Here we have the gods landing, and the Sphinx, apparently it was not only one, there was another one behind landing in this type of spacecrafts or something. And here we have again the Sphinx, but the Sphinx was not the pharaoh's face, it was a lion's head. Here we have it, and here we have it. So like what the scientists agree is that there were two, not only one. Like one facing one side, the other one facing the other side, and that apparently it was rebuilt, reconstructed with the shape of the head of a pharaoh. But we're not going to enter here more. What we can say is that the Sphinx looks to the constellation of Leo. So this ancient civilization for sure studied the stars and was able to send some message out there, not only with religious purposes. Let's take a look to the Mayans. The Mayans say, okay, extraterrestrials, aliens, beings, for sure, because if you want to look for life outside of you, the air has life, everything is like the tree, no? And there is life that is ramified all over, the stars, the sun, the animals, the air, all beings, everything that is from nature or created in a natural way has a soul. So everything, it is alive. And in the Chilambalam, here I have a picture that it is the Anthropology Museum in Mexico of one of the first translations that were done by the Spanish when they came of the Chilambalam, one book of the Mayans, and it says, beings descended from the stars arrived in strange flying ships, were white gods that flew in flying luminous discs and reached back to the stars. So this is what the Mayans said and have written. And Tikal, that was the first Mayan city, is built in the following way. Here we have the pyramid that is a cluster aligned with the cluster of stars of the Pleiades. And then there is this big path, and then we have the pyramid of the sun. So it is perfectly aligned with the constellation of the Pleiades, the whole city. According to Wayne Herschel, there is not only one sun, ours, but there is also another sun or another big star that it is very important because it makes a triangle. Let's take a look to the Aztecs. So we have been studying these Borgia Codex in the previous episodes, and here we have that this guy has a blonde hair, is yellow for sure, as they say that they depict the Pleiadians. This is Orion's belt here, the symbol of Orion. Here we have another 3 symbols that can also represent the Orion belt. And here we're going to have 7 stars that are going to be representing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that could represent the Pleiades. This is according to Wayne Herschel. The same happens in Stonehenge. So here you can see in the images where there is the sun and there is the path that it's guided to the Pleiades. But in 2014, these lines appeared in the lands, in the crops around the Stonehenge. And if we just turn into light, we have this image. So apparently, we have here the Pleiades and here we have the sun, which is the center of Stonehenge. And this guy with this shield, with this helmet, that is a knight, and if we understand that he appears in England, where the history has to do a lot with this type of customs, he's pointing with the sword very clear towards the sun, like, please pay attention to this place. And this Stonehenge, it's aligned with the stars, and it was a place where men became God. Basically, where men were able to grow spiritually and receive a transformation, to make a shift, a change in consciousness, a different state. Let's see a video where he explains also what he has found in Mars. I decided to include also the Nazca culture because when I went to Peru, this was a culture, a civilization that really surprised me. These are geoglyphs that you can find on the ground, on the desert, and they cover a huge area. Each of them can be from 0.4 to 1.1 kilometers. So they are very, very big, and they cannot be perceived. Like, you can see lines or different aspects of the terrain when you are walking, but you cannot even see the figure or the design. You have to only see it when you fly. And these were discovered in 1970s by a German lady who had dedicated her life to basically the study of the Nazca culture. They have many types of figures. For example, they have the sun, they have the trees, they have animals, they have geometrical geometrical shapes. They have men, but look the man that is here. And what is he doing? He's saying hi, he's waving. We cannot see movement, but it is very clear that he has one hand up and with big eyes, he's looking. For what we see here, we cannot say that he is human because these are not the proportions, this is not the way that we're going to describe a human being. Look at this one. This is a being, here we have the head, here we have the ears, and here we have the hands. What it is clear, and actually this geoglyph is called hands because it has one with 5 fingers and another one with 4 fingers. So if these shapes are only being able to be seen from the sky, why did they build them? They build them to communicate with the stars, with beings from the stars. The Nazca culture really shocked me in many aspects. For example, here they have these spirals that, as I tell you, show that they knew a lot about the energy of creation because these are the cycles that represent. Also, the many skulls, elongated skulls, had been found in Nazca. And they also mummified their people. So here we have mummies, they know how to preserve the body. So that means that they also believe in the after-death life. Or maybe just leave the body, a shift. We have the elongated skulls, we have the spirals. And I love the handcrafts. So when I went to see the handcrafts to see what can I bring or what could I buy, I saw their tapestries. And what they basically did was this type of shapes. And if you see, look the feet here. The feet of this guy, of this being, are curved, which means that he's not standing up. Or he's swimming or he's flying, but he's not stand up. Look at this one. And this one is happy, full of colors. And these colors are the way that when you are having different states of consciousness, when your brain reaches the gamma states, when you are in very high meditations, or when you are, when people that have done ayahuasca and these altered states of consciousness, what you can see is in colors that are fluorescent. And look at the colors and look at his face, and he is flying. And he's flying in the dark, like in the space. So like he's having a trip. Yes, people can say, okay, he did it because he was under a substance of something, right? But maybe he was also through a meditation. And here you also have this guy flying in the space with this other one, little one, look the feet also moving. You can say, okay, they were just high and they were having fun. But they built the structures. They made geoglyphs that can only be seen from the sky. So there is something more. This is a really attractive culture to explore. And they disappear without a reason, similar to the Mayans. In the same way to the Mayans, the scientists are going to say that maybe they just end up with the resources and because of that they disappeared, but they never find their bodies or the bones of the people in order to say, okay, they starved and they died, or they just migrate to another populations and then the bones are somewhere else, or no trace. So this is what it is very interesting. What are they trying to tell us? So let's see. Recently, we have heard many messages from these extraterrestrial beings. Since we developed the technology of being able to record and have cameras in our homes and all these, many people all around the world started filming or recording in the radio things that were strange, that we call paranormal. And we find out that most of them have things in common. They can be messages that says no war, stop conflicts, that are condemning the nuclear weapons, like no extermination of the nature, basically, of our human race and all around it, of our Mother Earth. They also talk about things that are going to occur according to celestial movement. For example, solstices, eclipses have been predicted. They also bring shapes, geometrical shapes, such as the one of the sacred geometry, spirals in the sky, spirals on the ground, and sounds like horns, like trumpets. And these had been appearing all over the world. OVNIs, UFOs, everything that you can check in YouTube, in the news, and everything you can find. Some of them, NASA says, well, yes, we cannot recognize. It's a non-identified object. We cannot say what this is. This one I selected here to show you because it is very interesting. In 2014, the 6th of June, the day that they were celebrating the D-Day, which was the invasion in 1944, in Morse code appeared this in the crops of England, in Hampshire, and it says, "No more war." So the message is very clear. When the celebration of this D-Day, of the landing of the troops, like starting the war, they say no more war. These other ones appear, for example, this is the seed of life. And here we have also the activation of the flower of life, like it's the source, the sacred geometry for creation. And these also were part of the crops, and this happened in Mexico, on top of Mexico City. The Mexican Meteorological Service said that they were visualizing or capturing or like receiving a frequency, an energy that was moving, that created this shape, the shape of the seed of life. Maybe the guardians of the tradition were activating their Merkabas, and they were activating their knowledge, what they know about this creation. Or maybe from the outside something was coming on towards these pyramids. Remember that this center in Mexico City, there are the pyramids of Teotihuacan. But the meteorological service was able to record this. Jaime Maussan, he's Mexican. He is a person that had studied a lot of UFOs, a lot of paranormal things, and he has a whole channel with a very scientific approach, and he has been quiet many times, the same as Herschel, the one that I just showed you, that he mirrors the previous civilizations' constructions or buildings with the constellation of Orion. So there is a lot more things here. There is something that is more profound that we don't know, that our knowledge is limited to. But there are secrets here that somebody doesn't want everybody to know. And the final crop that I want to show here is, this one appears in 2011. It is the molecule of melatonin. Melatonin is something that we produce in our brain with our pineal gland when we reach elevated states of consciousness, when we are in such a deep meditation, or when we follow those paths of the ancient civilizations with allies, such as herbs or peyote or many other ways. There are many ways of reaching, of allowing this melatonin to be produced. And DMT. So these hormones produce a chemical reaction in your body that allows the Kundalini to go up and out, and you release such an experience like a spiritual orgasm that makes all the energy of your body shift. And when you reach this type of transformation, you are never the same being as you were before. You completely clean your lower centers. You are open to different perspectives, to different possibilities. It is like you remove the veil that doesn't let you see, that makes you feel stuck, that the veil of that ego that limits you, and you reach certain consciousness of freedom. This is very well explained in the book of Joe Dispensa called Supernatural. And I invite you to read it because it's a wonderful book from a scientific approach explaining this. And we can see these crops there. What are they trying to tell us with this? For me, the message is very clear. The message is very clear. We have to realign with the stars. We have to evolve. We have to come back inside, reach these methods, and basically be free. Be free, get out of the domination, get out of the matrix. If you ask my opinion after I have studied all this, I will say definitely we are not alone. We live in parallel realities. So there is this first D dimension of the unity of consciousness that we all want to go back to. There is the second dimension when maybe low vibrational beings are living, or where the virus, the bacteria, things like that, but at the same time, with this duality, when there is the duality. In the third world, in the third dimension, we can see the physical world, the manifestation and the possibility of express yourself, the possibility of experiencing, the possibility of integrating, and obviously of transformation. So we have great potential being humans in this life. And then we have the 4D, where we are not limited with the matter, with the space, because we now are going to be able to travel through time. There is going to be the infinite, no present, no future. And the 5D, that is the feelings from the 528 hertz frequency, when you are all heart, all love. In the 6th dimension are those beings that are creating etherically all what we see. In the 7th dimension is what we will call heaven, because everything is so beautiful, is peace, is love, and there are these beings laughing and being so happy and little and like fatty, what we will call the cherubims in the 7th dimension. And then we continue 8th, 9th, that is all what we can experience with this physical body, and then continue until the 12th dimension. So there are infinite dimensions that we have to experience. But with this reality, we have to activate our 12 chakras to be able to move consciously through these dimensions. So I believe that meanwhile, science is focused on understanding everything with our 5 senses. It's going to be very difficult. We don't know what are we looking out there. We think that we're looking for things that are similar, but in fact, they are here, living with us in parallel, and we are a product of everything. We are multidimensional beings. So perhaps with this reality, we're not able to see them, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist, and it doesn't mean that we cannot communicate with them. I would love that you experience it by yourself. Give it a try. And maybe we will have different answers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to receive your comments. This is a very interesting topic. We can talk a lot. There is a lot of evidence, very interesting to discuss, but I just selected this because I think it was giving us a nice perspective. So thank you so much. Please send me your comments, and see you in the next one, where we're going to see the human origin. Bye!